I have seen my last tomorrow. I am holding my last breath. Goodbye.
My name is Robert Lee IV. I'm a descendant of Robert E. Lee, the Civil War general whose statue was at the center of violence in Charlottesville.
Great nephew of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. You're born and raised in the South. Why'd you decide to speak out against these Confederate monuments?
Well, after Charlottesville, my heart was broken.
I would now like to introduce the Reverend Robert W. Lee IV. We've been talking about his great-great-grandfather. Reverend Lee, welcome.
My uncle, Robert E. Lee. So many greats removed, of course.
We are joined by Reverend Robert Lee IV, a pastor, author, and the great-great-great-nephew of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who's also his namesake. Thank you so much for joining us, Reverend.
Thank you for having me.
The images shocked many Americans, including a descendant of General Robert E. Lee, the commander of the Confederate Army during the Civil War. Reverend Robert W. Lee IV reacted to the photographs in an Axios article saying, quote, "A flag of treasonous and seditious movement entered our capital, and that was an attack on our democracy." And Reverend Robert W. Lee joins me now. As I mentioned, he is the great-great-great-nephew of General Robert E. Lee. He's also an author, activist, and pastor at...
The chair now recognizes Reverend Robert Wright Lee, descendant of the Confederate General Robert E. Lee.
I am not the first Robert Lee to testify before the United States Congress. One did in 1866 during Reconstruction. It is indeed another person who bears a first and surname identical to mine, and whose lineage I bear as a nephew of Confederate General Robert E. Lee.
I have seen my last tomorrow. I am holding my last breath. Goodbye.